months and years. We have a presenter today, Andre Jacobs, and he's going to explain a little bit more about his program. And that program sounds really, really interesting. I googled his site, and it's the tribal partnerships. So I think this is a very, very, and it's going to be insightful. And of course, we're going to go through some of the information here with the OIE, the tribal consultation, meal justification, and the graduation coming up. And this is always something that you want to keep very, very close to you, or disseminate this to all your high schools to make sure that they're aware of this HB 30. I think last year, we ran into a little bit of issue for one of the schools, but it was all good.
Good
Um,
morning. Morning, I have a surprise. Richard!
and
Oh, are you here? No, it's not Richard. You're like Richard. Oh my God. It's
okay,
Meredith.
okay, Meredith. Yeah, I know, man. It sounds like they're having a get together already. Um, I asked Eddie. I don't know if Eddie's on. Eddie, are you on? Well, if
It
not,
doesn't look like he's joined yet.
not yet. Okay. Well, we're going to have to move without him. So I'll go ahead and say the cultural reverence, and I like to do this in a prayer. Again, when I do the prayer portion of that, that's something that is more focused on our meeting today, and our thinking about our children. So I'll start in that. I'll start in that way, in a good way, hopefully. Father in heaven, as we gather this day with the Title VI coordinated program, the meeting that we're embarking on, we ask for a blessing to be placed upon the Title VI programs throughout the state. We pray for the coordinators, the families, the community, and most important is the children, that they receive the instructions that they need, all the instructions which takes place in the buildings of their community and schools. We pray for the teachers, administrators, and all those that are involved with this educational process of educating our children. We pray for their endeavors to reach their goals. As you know, that the school is beginning to conclude with some activities and celebrations, that look after those activities and celebrations in a good way. We also pray for today's program with our presenters and a professional development individual, that they prepared materials for us, that we may be able to seek the knowledge from that and put it into our lessons and our thought process. And as we travel, also, we ask for the travel to be safe. And these blessings, Father, we pray and that we ask at this time. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, is Dustin on? Yes, he
I'm on.
is. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and I'll turn the time over to Dustin,
Okay.
and we can go from there.
All right. Are you all seeing my screen okay?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. Um all right. So just so you know, legislative session is about over and probably over. um and there was a lot of odd bills coming through. A lot of them really, going after DEI, really going after um um programs that speak about history and things like that. And so, looking at the political climate of things, um, it looks like our country might elect Trump again. And so, with that, and if you're going to vote for Trump, I'm not going to say anything, bad about it. I'm just saying that when Obama left, he created the Bears Ears monument. And immediately after he left, when Trump was elected, one of the very first things he did um, was was dismantle Bears Ears as a monument and created two. 2 new really small monuments within the original monument boundaries. And so when Biden came in, he restored the monument back to its, I think, a little bit bigger than its original boundaries that Obama did. But I thought it would be important because you're going to hear a lot of things about the Antiquities Act, what it means and what it does and why it's there. And President Obama, he created the Bears Ears Monument through the Antiquities Act, and we're going to talk about why. Okay, a lot of people don't like the Antiquities Act, and we'll get to that in just a second. Let me see. The Antiquities Act isn't super big. It's not super long, but I will tell you that it's something you can read. I mean, I'll go through the whole Antiquities Act with you. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. That's the Antiquities Act. So you can read it in one sitting and get it done with. But I thought it'd be important to understand what it is and the legislative history behind it. And so when this discussion comes up within the state, within your schools, you have a better background of what's going on. So Antiquities Act Section 1, what it does is it allows the president of the United States to set aside land as a national monument, right? It says, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, Congress, assembled, that any person who shall appropriate, excavate, injure, or destroy any historic or prehistoric ruin or monument or any object of antiquity situated on lands owned or controlled by the U.S. government without the permission of the Secretary of the Department of the Government having jurisdiction over the lands on which said antiquities are situated shall, upon conviction. Now look at this. This basically says if you mess around with monuments or the antiquities within those monuments, it doesn't have a whole lot of teeth to stop you from doing it, right? It says you could be fined a sum of not more than $500, right? A $500 fine if you go in there and like destroy everything, or imprison for up to no more than 90 days, or both. So the most that could happen to you if you went into Bears Ears and took a sledgehammer to like house on fire down there, you get $500 and 90 days in jail. There's not a whole lot of deterrent, but this is an old act. I think it was from 1906. The Antiquities Act authorizes the President of the United States in his discretion to declare by public proclamation historic landmarks, historic and prehistoric structures, and other objects of historic or scientific interest that are situated upon the lands owned or controlled by the government of the United States to be national monuments. All right. So the one thing that I feel like you should look at, though, and really understand is that the president has the authority to do this. And we'll get into why that's important. But for right now, look at this and say the Antiquities Act is a tool of the president's office that he can use. Okay. Now, if anybody goes in there to excavate, to examine for all archaeological purposes, or if you do that, if you go in there to do any type of study, that's fine, right? That's all fine. But it says that the examinations, excavations, and gatherings are undertaken for the benefit of reputable museums, universities, colleges, or otherwise recognized scientific or educational institutions, with a view increasing the knowledge of subjects, and that the gathering shall be made for permanent preservation in public museums. So, you know, we're gonna create boundaries around these sites, and if there's anything being removed from these sites, there's anything being studied in these sites, that stuff has to be shared with museums and educational facilities that are there to preserve and understand more. Okay, that's really what you need to see about this. So what can you do with the Antiquities Act? Allows the president to protect America's wildlands and historical sites as national monuments. And this is what he can use, or he or she can use the Antiquities Act to do, right? Protect natural, historical, cultural areas, expand monument boundaries, direct resources toward monument management, and redesignate monuments as national parks. So it is a conservation tool on this. And these are the things that a president can use the Antiquities Act to do. Since the establishment in 1906, 16 presidents. So it's not uncommon, all right? We have 44 presidents, or 46 presidents now, and the 16 of them have used the Antiquities Act to make national monuments, or to create national monuments. Only 3 presidents didn't, right? Nixon, Reagan, and George W. Bush. Nixon probably didn't do it because he was doing other things. I mean, I'm not talking about his illegal things that he was involved in, but Nixon was actually the president that really pushed forward the Self-Determination Education Assistance Act. It was under Nixon's administration that Blue Lake from Taos Pueblo was restored back to the tribe there, right? This was all enclosed within a national forest. Nixon went in and said, hey, that Blue Lake is sacred for the Taos Pueblo, the Tiwa people, so we're going to give that back to them. We're going to remove it from that and give it back to the tribes. So though Nixon didn't use the Antiquities Act specifically to do things, Nixon did do a lot of things for the Native community when it came to overall policies that we still use today. Reagan and Bush didn't do it. But that's, George H.W. Bush. George W. probably did, but for sure Nixon, Reagan, and George H. did not. So Congress and the Antiquities Act. I'm going to say just straight out front that when it comes to federal lands, the only entity that can control federal lands, that has final say on federal lands, is Congress. Okay, they're the guys. They're designated. That's an enumerated power in the Constitution. That's Congress's job. They've declared national monuments over 40 times. They've redesignated 32 national monuments as national parks, right? The Grand Canyon started off as a monument, now it became a national park. And there are bills in Congress to designate special places as national monuments. That happens. It's so when you saw Obama do it with Bears Ears, and Biden do it with Bears Ears, it wasn't like this special thing, this thing that no one ever does, like this old antiquated law that Obama reached in the bottom of the bag to pull out to figure out how to do this. No, it's always been there. Every president except 3 we saw actually use it. Now, again, just a PowerPoint that this is a constitutional authority. Bullet point number 4, right? The Antiquities Act does not authorize Congress to designate lands as national monuments. The Constitution does. Okay. The Constitution of the United States allows Congress to designate federal lands and manage them and control them and operate things on them. The Antiquities Act was an exception to this enumerated power by Congress. It was an exception given to the president. Okay. And so remember that the Antiquities Act is an exception to create national monuments for the president, but Congress really holds all the keys to do it. That Congress has constitutional authority to do it. So why do we have national monuments? Well, they're different than national parks. Okay, what is a national monument? It's any land or historic area given permanent protection by Congress or the president through the Antiquities Act. Look at that, permanent protection, right? It includes wild places, historic places like Canyons of the Ancients National Monument in Colorado. The Statue of Liberty is a national monument, right? Permanent placement. The purpose, how do they differ from national parks? I think everyone should understand this. National parks, look at their purpose. Protected due to their scenic, inspirational, education, and recreational value. That's why we create national parks. National monuments are a little different. They protect objects of historical, cultural, and/or scientific interest. So their content it can be pretty varied depending on where you're at and where you're designating. National monuments, this is the language that encourages all the debate now between people that don't want a national monument and people that want a national monument. The big debate is over this subject right here. National monuments have to be the smallest size compatible to protect the sites. Whereas national parks, they can't be too small. They have to be of a certain size. They must have a minimum size, right? If they're too small, they can't be national parks. But national monuments, they have to be as small as you can to protect the historical, cultural, and scientific interest um, of the area. So what we're seeing on these borders is that you have Biden and Obama looking at this area, identifying all the things within Bears Ears, and then drawing one big circle around all of them. Okay, all of them together are in one big circle, and that's how Obama and Biden decided that is the smallest compatible area to be protected. There, a lot of Republicans feel like, well, if we're going to protect the smallest area, let's just draw little circles around each of the sites within Bears Ears, right? Let's make little protection units around individual artifacts, individual ruins, individual burial areas, rather than one big circle over all those things. So that's the big debate on it. How much do we need to actually protect Bears Ears? It's no lie that there's a uranium mill right next to Bears Ears, the White Mesa uranium mill, just a couple miles away from White Mesa Mountain Ute community. That's the only uranium processing plant in the entire United States. So they get a lot of traffic on roads that probably aren't built for it. and maybe running a facility that may not be quite up to compliance yet, if you talk to people around that area. So they're really worried about that. And then when there's uranium and other green energy materials right around Bears Ears, right on the borders of Bears Ears, you're going to have a lot of people within our country saying, hey, if our country is going to need to move forward, if our country is going to be able to progress, if our country is going to be able to keep up with other technologies, other countries technology-wise, we're going to need to get really close to Bears Ears, if not inside it, to get those materials that we need, right? So there is an argument about how big Bears Ears should be and how close mining should get to those areas. And then, those are all under the overall argument of should this be a national monument to begin with. Who manages national monuments? Well, this is the big thing. Usually it's the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, right? Usually it's these guys. The problem is that these entities, these agencies, these federal agencies are normally not funded very well, and so they're short on staff, and it might be for financial reasons, but also they're short on staff because not a lot of people are going into that industry anymore. There's the pay is not super great, and there's not a whole lot of you, and so you want, it's hard to find people to manage these monuments. I will tell you right now that Representative Doug Owens, and this isn't even his district, Doug Owens sponsored a bill a few years ago designating $250,000 to the Bears Ears Tribal Advisory Council so that they could look into hiring a landscape architect that could build them a state-of-the-art cultural facility, cultural visitor center down in Bears Ears. The idea is that if you have a visitor center there, if you have federal, national park, monument, BLM, Forest Service workers there, you'll be able to control the traffic that's going through those areas and protect the sites a lot better. The idea is you probably don't want everybody going to every single site in that area in Bears Ears. So with a visitor center, you can create like walking paths. And you can direct traffic to where you want people to go and see what you want people to see. But also, Bears is a pretty big place, and so you want to a visitor center that has an area where a park service employee could lecture, could give examples, could have cultural demonstrations, could have places where people who cannot walk, or maybe, whether it be for I can't walk very well, or I'm in a wheelchair, for those reasons, they can still enjoy and appreciate what's there with the visitor center and all those things. So that's the Bears Ears Intertribal Coalition has been designated by Biden as the Bears Ears Tribal Advisory Council. And so they have decided that they would like to move forward on that, find that that landscape architect, so that they could provide them really good drawings and visions of what this could look like. And so that's exciting. That might be happening pretty soon. And I think with the writing on the wall, if we're looking at the polls nationally with Trump leading things, I think the Bears Ears Intertribal Coalition is trying to move faster on this, because they realize that this monument could go away altogether, or be reduced substantially where things are not being protected with or without a visitor center. So they would like to move fast to make sure those protections are in place. What can you do in a national monument? You can camp, you can backpack, you can hunt, you can fish, you can horseback ride, you can even ride motorized vehicles on designated roads, right? Hiking and biking in designated areas. So basically everything that's happening right now in Bears Ears, when it became a national monument, you can continue doing it. I guess the tribal concerns are we need to make sure that people aren't doing it over burial areas. They're not shooting guns at old pots and old pottery and old ruins, right? You can go up there right now and see bullet holes in basically everything there. I know that there was somebody in the state legislature that said that raccoons and badgers were the ones destroying everything, but raccoons and badgers don't have guns, at least last time I saw. And they're not the ones shooting stuff up and leaving beer cans everywhere, right? We need some type of protection there. But if you're thinking when something becomes a monument, you lose all access to it, that's not necessarily true, because all these things are permitted in some way within national monuments. In fact, if Bears Ears National Monument, in Bears Ears National Monument, the language is existing rights are protected. So the current oil and gas leases, they continue. The current access to private property, it continues. The current mining and valid mining claims that are there right now, they will continue. The current roads and utility infrastructure, they continue. The current livestock grazing and leasing of federal lands, that continues. All that continues, it just doesn't increase anymore. And if it does increase, it's going to be a regulated increase on that. So when you say, oh, the monument that are making Bears Ears National Monument, we won't be able to extract resources. We're not be able to even visit there. We're not going to be able to walk there. We're not going to be, and that's not true. All of these always exist. But just like all of our protections under the Bill of Rights, all of these are going to be regulated in some way, right? Even freedom of speech, search and seizure, freedom of religion, all these things, all these rights that you look at under the Bill of Rights are like, you can't do this, government. But the reality is the government can do a lot as long as it's reasonable, right? All of those rights that you mentioned in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, all of them are limited and regulated by time, place, and manner restrictions, right? Time, when can you do that? Place, where can you do that? Manner, how can you do that? For example, if I'm protesting abortion, I probably can't stand right in front of an emergency room door at a hospital, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer, right? At 3 a.m, right? I can't do that. There's time, place, and manner restrictions on those things. If you're doing it in front of an emergency room door, you're impeding people from getting help. If I'm protesting my homeowners association, I probably can't do it at 3 in the morning because people are sleeping. I can't walk around the streets with the blowhorn yelling, right? It's limited. Um, Time, where, or time, place, manner. Yeah. Even voting, right? I can tell people who I want you to vote for, but not within like 200 feet of a polling station, right? In fact, if I was going to vote for Biden, I couldn't wear a T-shirt that said "Vote Biden" into the polling area because that's considered demonstration, and all demonstration has to be within like 200 feet away from the polling station. So all these things are limited by time, place, and manner. But what I want you to realize with these national monuments is that when it becomes a national monument, all the current activity that has already taken place there continues. It's just regulated a little bit more in some way to preserve the cultural, scientific, and and beauty interest of that monument. If you ask people about the Antiquities Act, people like it. Um, the only people that don't really like Antiquities Act, national monuments, national parks, national forests. um, the people that don't like it are the people that try to extract resources from those areas. If you're getting away of capitalism, if you're getting away of free market, right? If you're not letting somebody pull something out and sell it, you're probably not going to like Antiquities Act because that removes federal land from future purposes. Now, if you're already mining there, the monument and the created under the Antiquities Act doesn't affect that much, but it does affect the idea of it increasing rapidly over the years. And so I'll just leave that with you. Um, there are groups that do not think the president should have the power, right? And this is the word, to unilaterally create national monuments. Unilaterally, on his own. The president's office does it on their own. There are bills in Congress that reduce the powers in the act going through, and people are trying to pass them. Again, this idea about the smallest area compatible to protect sites. It states that there was no size restriction on national monuments. So a lot of people are like, hey, Bears Ears is way too big. You can't, that's not, there's no way that's the smallest size compatible to protect those things. But in 1920, 14 years after the Antiquities Act passed, there isn't anything that says this national monument can be too big. There's nothing. There's nothing about that. It can be small, which no one has a problem with. It can be big. If it gets pretty big, like it reaches the minimum size of a national park, that might change its designation. But until it does, um, saying that a national monument is too big, um, there's not a lot of legal standing on that. Because there's nothing that says it can't be bigger than so many acres right there. Um, I want to back up just a little bit. Um, right here. Uh, I think what I'd like to express here is that these. Oh, had a brain fart. I'll move forward. Maybe it'll come back to me. Sorry about that. I wanted to tell you that given that the U.S. Constitution gives all power and control of federal lands to Congress, right, to the legislative branch. Um, why does the president have the power to do this under the Antiquities Act? Uh, well, it got when with the country growing and the federal government claiming lands, state governments claiming lands, and who's going to have to take care of everything. Um, for a while there, Congress delegated its powers to a ton of different federal agencies, right? They said, hey, agency, when it comes to this, you handle that when it concerns land. Hey, agency B, when this comes up, you handle that kind of land. Agency C, when this comes up, you handle that type of land. They delegated so much of their federal power to regulate federal lands that they actually gave the same authorities to like 2 or more different agencies. And so they would fight about how do we take care of this land, who is really in control and all of that. So back in 1976, Congress passed FLPMA, the Federal Land Policy Management Act of 1976. What that did was Congress said, I know we delegated all these powers out to all these different agencies. Well, guess what? We're calling them all back. They removed all those federal land powers that they delegated to different agencies and brought them all back to Congress in 1976, except one, the Antiquities Act. All right, they did not undo the Antiquities Act power that was delegated to the president's office. They pulled back all the other land delegation powers from all other federal agencies, but they let the president keep the Antiquities Act. That says something, right? We'll get to that more. The U.S. Constitution gives Congress power to decide what happens to territory or other property belonging to the United States, just what I was just saying. Congress passed the Antiquities Act, delegating a portion of that authority to the president so that the designation process could move faster to protect resources or threatened sites. Sometimes it just takes a long time for things to get done when it comes to Congress, and especially when it comes to the land that Congress has the authority to watch over and manage. And so they recalled all those powers, but kept one out there, the Antiquities Act, for the president, because they knew that if someplace really needs protected, the legislative process may take too long to provide adequate protections to this area. So they wanted another agency, in fact, another branch, to have the authority to hurry and do it, to make sure it's protected while Congress debates it, right? What should happen is that when a national monument is created, Congress should then look at it and decide whether or not it should remain, right? But it being part of politics, people in politics don't want to talk about it. People in Congress, it may affect their reelection, so they don't want to handle it. They don't want to deal with it. So they just kind of leave the president and the Antiquity Act to the side instead of either confirming or removing those monuments. The Antiquities Act only says a president can create a national monument. It does not address, it's silent, okay? It's silent as to abolishing national monuments or shrinking national monuments by a president. So just be aware of that. Has it happened though? Absolutely, it's happened. In 1938, President Roosevelt wanted to abolish the Castle Pinckney National Monument, but his attorney general at the time told him that, hey, I've been reviewing the Antiquities Act. It doesn't look like you, Mr. President, can do that. You can create them. It doesn't look like you can undo them. Again, I bring up the Federal Land Policy Management Act of 76. They repealed all their earlier laws, but left the Antiquities Act unchanged, right? It says legislative reports on the matter show that Congress intended to prohibit the president from modifying or abolishing a national monument, stating the law would, one, quote, specifically reserve to the Congress the authority to modify, revoke withdrawals for national monuments created under the Antiquities Act. So when a president creates a national monument under the Antiquities Act, the entity that's supposed to modify or revoke boundary lines or acreage or the monument itself is Congress. It says it right there, right? So if the next president comes in and wants to do away with the Antiquities Act, legally, specifically, only Congress can do that, right? But anymore, it's hard to tell what's going on in the federal government with those three branches, right? But that's what the law says. Presidents have adjusted national monuments a lot, like a dozen times. Very small adjustments. Look at this adjustment and why it happened. Mount Olympus National Monument was reduced by half during World War I because President Wilson thought the nation needed the lumber at the time. So national emergency, right? We need the lumber. World War I, a lot of our planes were still wood and canvas tarp spread over them. So they needed wood for rifles, for barracks, for planes. They needed it. at that time, and to they needed coal, they needed wood, they needed all things that could burn to process steel, right, and things like that. So that was a time when it happened. These are a few pictures of Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante. But this is a beautiful place. I grew up on the New Mexico side of the Navajo reservation, and I hardly left. My parents are silversmiths, and they just worked all day, so we never really traveled through the reservation unless we were going to a game or attending some cultural ceremonial function. But that was usually at night, so I didn't really see a lot of stuff when we traveled at night to ceremonial things. But having since moved to Utah, having since had this job and going down, it's amazing how beautiful that Bears Ear site is. How beautiful Grand Staircase is. It's amazing. My brother jokes around with me. He was like, "Man, the pretty side of the res was certainly Utah." And I said, "No, I like high desert. Tohatchi is beautiful." Anyway, but these are some pictures of it there. Look at it's just gorgeous going there. I wanted to share these things with you because and there's things that that's gonna come up in the news. I really wanted to share this with you because a lot of you are gonna have students that have their tribes have some type of historical connection to Bears Ears. That is so true that even Zuni and Hopi tribes. Zuni is 45 minutes south of Gallup. Hopi, right, middle of Navajo Nation in Arizona. They used to travel far enough north where their ancestors and Bears Ears had a relationship. And so they're still concerned about that relationship. Is the Antiquities Act still relevant law? Why or why not? I tend to think so. I'll leave it to you to form your personal opinion. I think Antiquities Act is still relevant only because Congress moves so slow sometimes on things. We've seen them not hear Supreme Court nominations. We've seen them not even try to do an impeachment hearing, right? Sometimes Congress drags its feet, and beautiful things, cultural things, sacred things could be lost if we don't act quickly and appropriately. And I think the Antiquities Act allows the president, if he's so inclined, at his discretion, to protect these areas until Congress has time to really take a look at them. Should the president be able to undo a previous president's designation, or should only Congress be able to do that? I don't even get that specific, right? Should a president be able to undo a previous president's designation? It's not even that. That's not even a question. I think the law is pretty solid on that. Only Congress can revoke or remove or modify the Antiquities Act. So it's not about one president destroying the heritage of another president. My argument is let's just follow the law. If you don't want Bears Ears to be a national monument, or if you want those boundaries to change, then Congress is the one that should be able to do it. It shouldn't be this political ping pong thing that happens between the Democrat and Republican Party every time we get a new president from a different administration. Now, what's going on right now? Right now, it's in court. It's kind of just sitting in court. They're waiting for Congress to act, but the tribes have sued over Trump's reduction and basically dismantling of Bears Ears and creating a new Bears Ears. That went to court. When Biden came in and put the boundaries back, it's just sitting in court. It hasn't really been dismissed. It's going to come up again. If we have a change in administration, Bears Ears is going to go straight to the news. It's just like abortion. It's just like immigration. Bears is right up there with them. No, it doesn't look like anybody in politics really wants to fix it. They just like using it to remind people if you're Republican or Democrat, especially right now in the primaries. So just be aware of this. Depending if Biden doesn't get reelected, this is going to come back into the conversation. Your students may be from a tribe that has a cultural connection to this area. And so, this might be good information for you to have a better understanding of what's happening. Does the law have any teeth? It needs more teeth. in my opinion. In 1906, $500 and 90 days in jail was probably a pretty big fine and deterrent to keep people away from doing it. Honestly, I think that it needs to go up to like a $5,000 fine, a year in jail, uh, to be a true deterrent to stop people from going in there and purposely trying to destroy things and destroy history and evidence of people that lived there in the past. Uh, that's Oh crap! Stop sharing. That's what I got for you today. Um, I also debated on sharing with you about powwow. It's powwow season right now for a lot of your students. A lot of universities are going to start kicking out powwows every Saturday, and it may be something your kids are interested in and want to take part in. So just be aware of that. If you want to look at all the major universities and see if they have a powwow coming up, you want to share that with your native kids, I would encourage you to do that. We're currently working on our website to provide some type of calendar, community calendar that people can look at. But it's important that you stay up to date on what your students might be interested in. And I think if you attended powwows in your area when they came close, you could build really strong relationships with your kids on a level that's different than probably just what we normally go through in standard schooling curriculum. Uh, does anyone have any questions for me right now?
Hey, Dustin, there's a comment in the chat
Okay.
from Nebo School District was granted the UCOR grant. So information is important. We want to be part of the Bears Ears camp out.
I
So I
think
think, there's, I guess basically there's grants out there to become a little bit more knowledgeable. So maybe Eileen can make another comment on that. And
Yeah.
I got a couple of I got a couple of comments or uh,
Okay.
uh, so
Awesome.
Eileen, do you have any other? Okay.
I just wanted the Title VI organizations, the Title VI programs to know that there are grants out there where you can take your students outdoors to these amazing areas to learn about the homelands of our ancestors. And there's nothing more uh, inspiring for youth to be able to experience that space, that the scenery, the air, the outdoor. My mother used to say that the sacred elements, the outdoor, is the greatest teacher of all, more so than human beings. So this UCOR grant was a grant that was it stands for Utah Children's Outdoor Recreation and Education Grant. And it was $12,000. This is how you go for these grants, and this is how you have monies to be able to take your students to do these great educational experiences that you may not have the money to do otherwise.
Thank you, Arlene. I just to add on to that, I my division was approached by people that a nonprofit that takes kids, native kids, rafting. They teach kids how to raft and then how to go along the river for multiple days. And as they stop and camp, they have different traditional elders speak to them and talk to them about the area and about the water and tell them stories about things. So all those things are fantastic. And I remember, like I said, I'm from the New Mexico side of the river, so I didn't really go out and do a lot of stuff. And like Monument Valley was just right there. Why didn't I ever go there? And so my wife and I, we decided to take a tour. We just took Monument Valley tours. We got in a little back of a truck that had a bunch of benches in it, and we went to we did the full tour at Monument Valley and Mystery Valley. And my little son, his name's Jacob. He was talking to the tour guide the whole day because it's a whole day thing, and we're driving around everywhere. And the tour guide, he was a Navajo guy. He was like, "Hey, so what tribe are you?" And my son was like, "Oh, I'm Navajo." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "This is your homeland. This is where you're from." And when we're driving back home, my son goes to me, "Dad, I'm so happy that I'm Navajo. we did some really cool stuff, you know. And I was just like, oh, this kid's messing with me. But I was so glad he said it, right? And I was so glad that it made that impression on him, and he just thought it was just the most wonderful thing in the world. So I agree, Eileen. If you can get your kids out there to see it and experience and to just feel it, it's an amazing thing.
Hey, Dustin, I got a couple of, this is a lot of information, man. It's, my mind is going every direction in terms of, like the bear's ears. Um, I think there's a lot of attachment to that. Not only is it political, it becomes monetary. That
Oh
there's
yeah.
natural resources there, and that's monetary stuff. And sometimes that monetary stuff, if you really look into it, they're not from they're coming from a different country.
Hmm.
And coming from a different country and having excavate your home in, I think for me that it doesn't sit well. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's kind of wrong. I kind of, I think they ought to make a law on that it should it should be domestic, not international and stuff. I think that goes with, I send you some information on Oak Flats
Oh
on
yeah.
the Apache reservation. Basically they're going through basically the same thing.
Hmm.
It's not, I think the Oak Flats, just kind of a history behind that, or where it's located. It's just on the outskirts of the Apache reservation in Arizona. And they have millions and billions of uh, I guess pounds or whatever you call it, however they figured it out, that of copper.
Mm.
So they want to excavate that, and the Apache reservation people are saying that that's part of their homestead,
Yeah. That's-
and they do a lot of religious activities there. From the puberty ceremonies up to the elderly ceremonies, and welcoming of all the seasons, and they go on and on. They use that piece of property for that. But you get a company coming in, and they're excavating that, and now they want to take that piece of property for monetary reasons. And
mm,
I think that um, the courts, I agree with you with the you know going according to law.
mm,
But sometimes these courts are, they go. What I see is that they're in a political arena, so
mm,
they're gonna they're gonna sway their feelings, or they're gonna sway their decision on a political view, not the law. I
mm.
mean, that's just me.
No,
Um, y-
you're right though. Like even there's a Canadian company now, right now, today, that's just outside the boundaries of Bears Ears that's doing test
yeah,
drilling right now, even.
yeah,
Eileen has her hand up.
yeah. So
I,
I think that's for me, that's another one observation. And the other, some of the national, I guess sometimes it's monuments or parks, like Grand Tetons, Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, even Canyon de Chelly on the Navajo Reservation. Those are today that they're protected because I think that they're parks. I think. Then you get into the religious and the spiritual part. That's where the American Indians used to go and worship. But
Mm.
now when they do their worshiping, they have to pay to get in to do their worship on their own land. So it's kind of, you know, it's kind of twisted. So
Yeah.
those are just kind of my comments, my observation.
Yeah, and it's hard. I think it's hard for Western Judeo-Christian people with that background uh, to to see the differences between a chapel that's built and can be anywhere versus a a geographic area, right? that we could argue the creator built and right there, and
Yeah.
probably wanted it there for a reason, right? Yeah, and I think that's hard for people to say, oh, we're not stopping you from worshiping, right? You can do that anywhere. They don't really understand that, well, but I'm supposed to do it here, you know.
Yeah.
They're in this idea that, well, you can build another place and just go over there. It's like, no, I didn't build the first one. The creator built the first one, told me to do it here, and that's hard to prove in court. And it's, I hate covering that subject because it's so, it kills the soul. Eileen, did you have another question?
Yeah, I wanted just to share how we were able to do some of those things that I referred to. In 2018, I used funding that I wrote for to take 10 students with mentors down to Monument Valley. And the whole reason we did that was we wanted our urban kids to experience what it is like to live 4 days without running water, without electricity, and to be able to help do a service learning project as well. What we did was we took a load of wood down to an elder in Monument Valley, and then we went out, we took our trucks and went out and cut down some branches and redid her shade house. And we did it in summer when I remember the temperature in Monument Valley was 100 degrees during that time period. So the kids really got a workout. They were able to butcher a sheep. They were able to cook all of their meals. We cooked all of our meals outside. We slept in a hogan. We slept out in the shade house. And by the end of this, we asked the question, why is water important? Why is land important? You can really teach some huge things. We as Indian nations still have our access to a lot of lands, a lot of natural resources. We need to raise our youth so that they love this and they are keeping an eye on it. So get your kids involved. In 2020, we took a whole group of students to the Bears Ears Youth Camp and spent 2 days and down in Bears Ears there. And they have their own workshops they do. So you don't have to come up with workshops yourself. It's already done. You just take your students there. The way I get around permission slips is I do all these activities as a family oriented thing, so that I'm not responsible for the kids. I invite the families to come, and there's a parent there who is responsible, or the parent goes with, and then that's how you don't have to go through all of getting permission slips from the school district, which can be a huge obstacle. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you for providing those ideas, Eileen. I'm gonna end. I just wanted to share something. You know, I grew up on the Navajo reservation, and you know, today and this is a lot based on Chuck's comments. You know, I was told as a little kid that my left side, your left side is your male side. You know, that's the side you wear your bow guard on. That's the side you hold your bow on. For Navajos, your left side. And when I first became a judge, my family said I needed to carry an arrowhead in my left side, in your left pocket, because there's people around that want to do things to you, and this is protection for you. You should carry that on your left, in your left side, in your pocket. And then I had a small wallet. I like using really small wallets, and so I put that wallet in my left side too. And then my grandma told me, hey, don't put your medicine on the same size as your money. I don't want you to get confused about what's helping you. You know, she said that to me. So I keep my wallet in my right pocket, and my arrowhead on my left side. And but I always remembered that, you know, and it makes me remember and think about, what should be our priority here. Is money that important? Does money bring that many things? I mean, and realistically, money does help, but the most important things are those things that make us us, that keep us closer to the land and to our family, and help us receive those blessings, from our Creator. So I just wanted to end on that. And again, thank you all for your work, and I hope you take advantage of all these things that that were shared with you. I hope you take advantage of the things that Eileen shared with you, because I think it's so important to get kids out. Now, as a dad raising urban Indians, I see it. We need to get them out more, so I really appreciate that work you do. But Chuck, hey, thank you for the
Okay,
time.
very well said. Thank you. Thank you, Dustin. Oh, that was a lot of good information. So our next person, our presenter, is Andre Jacobs, and he's representing the Tribal Partnership America. Is it 250?
Yeah,
And I
thank
guess
you.
you can go ahead and you know introduce yourself and your program, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that there, Dr. Foster. And I wanted to thank Dusty as well. Dusty was one that actually introduced me to Dr. Foster, to Chuck here, and which allowed me this opportunity to speak and to share with you all today. So Poyana Chuknuk, thank you to everyone for allowing me this opportunity to share today. I'm here to share more about America's field trip that is being hosted by America 250. But before I get started with that, I thought I'd share a little about myself and why I chose to be a part of America 250. About 20 some odd years ago, with my best friend and I, we decided to start a t-shirt company. We created shirts that were all Yupik Eskimo phrases. I'm Yupik and Inupiaq from a remote Alaska, a town called Bethel, Alaska. So we made shirts that had Yupik words on them, and one of them was the longest word in Yupik. So the longest word in Yupik is 47 letters, and it's Dung Sutsjog Ali Yukapich Chu Nrijurenach Bingaka. Again, it's Dung Sutsjog Ali Yukapich Chu Nrijurenach Bingaka. And it means, maybe you really did not want to make me a small airplane. So it doesn't mean much, but it means everything. And that was the only thing we put on the shirt, was that word. And what that shirt allowed was for our Native community to engage, for people to engage, to ask, what's that word on your shirt? What does it mean? And which leads to greater talk about culture, language, history within the Native community on language and words. And so I loved that back then. And when I fast forwarded 20 years to now and to this effort with America 250, I realized what we did back then was exactly what we're doing right now. It's just the scale of this is going to be much larger for us to amplify Native language, Native culture, and Native history. And so that's why I chose to be a part of this effort, was because I wanted to help amplify Native words, Native language, Native culture, Native history for a large audience. It won't just be national, but there will be an international spotlight on America when we reach 250 years old, July 4th of 2026. So 2 years and some months from now, coming up very soon. So just want to share that. Let me share more about America 250 now. America 250 was established by Congress in 2016. The commission, the Semi-Quincentennial Commission, it's tasked with inspiring all Americans to participate as they see fit in the 250th anniversary of the US. We're nonpartisan, charged by Congress to lead this commemoration, and with the backing of all three branches of the federal government and its agencies. So therefore, because of that, because we have the backing of all of our government branches, independent agencies, we're uniquely positioned to make this happen. If you look at the bubbles here on the right-hand side, you'll see that we're chaired by former U.S. Treasurer Rosie Rios. The Treasurer Rios was formerly in the Obama administration as treasurer, and now she was asked by the president to lead up the semi-quincentennial effort as our chair. And I really like her a lot. Tough as nails, that's for sure. As I mentioned earlier, we're bipartisan. We're appointed by leadership from both the House and the Senate on both sides. We have leadership that are involved from the legislative, judicial, and executive branches. And to date, right now, we have 45 state commissions, along with American Samoa, Virgin Islands, and Washington, D.C. Here are some of our ex officio members of the commission. We have two in the Native community, as you can see on here. Deb Haaland, Secretary of Interior, Shelley Lowe, Chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities. These are, again, who are ex officio, so they are non-voting members. An observation is we do not have a single Native voting member of the commission, though. Just want to share that. So next I'll pivot over to this effort underway called America's Field Trip. This is our inaugural program for students and educators. It's a competition, a nationwide scholastic competition, inviting all of our students to reflect on what America means to them. Top submissions will be awarded a field trip, a once-in-a-lifetime behind-the-scenes opportunity to go to parks, museums, other cultural sites around the country. And I'll share more about what they look like in just a little bit. This is our pilot year, our pilot semester, actually, for America 250's field trip. We launched this pilot semester on March 4th. So last week, actually, last Monday. And again, as a pilot, this will help us learn, adapt, and expand America's Field Trip further down the road for fall 2024 and fall 2025. The competition for submissions is open till May 17th. And we'll have 75 first place awardees, 25 from different categories from elementary, middle, and high school. And we'll also have 75 second place awardees who will receive $500 scholarships. So these first place awardees, they will have their travel and accommodations paid for on these trips, along with a chaperone per student as well. So here is our submissions and judging criteria. Elementary school, middle school, high school. So elementary 3rd to 5th graders, middle schoolers 6th to 8th graders, 9th to 12th graders, high schoolers. You can see in here exactly what will be required. So students in elementary school create artwork or short poem or essay up to 100 words. Middle schoolers, a video or artwork. And for high schoolers, a written essay up to 1,000 words or video up to 2 minutes. These are going to be reviewed by education advisors that we have, along with representatives from 2 of our task forces, our civics and civic engagement task force. So where exactly will students get to go this summer? Well, thanks to our partners, federal and nonprofit partners, we've been able to secure these opportunities thus far. A tour of the Statue of Liberty, the crown of the Statue of Liberty, actually, Yellowstone, Rocky Mountain National Park. Some will go to DC to go to the National Archives, Library of Congress. Some will go to Boston for a USS Constitution tour, others San Francisco, or Alabama. So here are places that we know exactly where students will go this summer. But an observation you might have made is that there is nothing in Native communities thus far. And perhaps I love this discussion earlier, hearing about Bears Ears and how unique and beautiful it was. I don't know if perhaps it's potentially possible in the future to expand our field trip experiences to include the Utah communities and Native country as well. And Bears Ears just seems like an awesome place, but that's just me personally. We're working with educators. We've partnered with Discovery Education. They're developing toolkits and materials for educators to weave into your curriculum. We're conducting outreach to education, after-school civics organizations, reaching out to school districts and superintendents around the country. We're working with our federal agency partners to find these opportunities. And lastly, we've convened a small group of educators to act as our informal advisors on our materials and our contest. So what is the call to action for today? Well, we would love for you to share America's Field Trip with your networks, educators, families, teachers, principals, superintendents. We'd love for it's our America's Field Trip to be shared through your newsletters, email listservs, perhaps to parents or others in the community, through your social media, conferences you attend in the future as well. And what I can do after this conversation is I can provide a digital and communications toolkit for you. That way, if you were to share, you won't have to develop your own language or graphics or anything like that. We've got all that stuff already prepared for you, some sample language and graphics. So that's the gist of what I wanted to do, to share with everyone today. You can find more information on it. The easiest thing would just be to visit America250.org. Again, that's America250.org. I was going to go back here to show, see, these are some of the places that students will go this summer. As we expand in the following years, wearing my Native community hat, I think it would be great for there to be a Native footprint as part of these field trip experiences. And it would also be great to have a more Native representation as a part of our commission. But I will leave it at that. I'm really thankful for an opportunity to share today. And if anyone had any questions, I'm certainly would love to be able to answer any questions you might have today.
Hey, Jacob, I have a couple questions in reference to that. You mentioned that writing some information on that. Is there a subject area, or is there a subject that these students can write on? And plus, you talked about the toolkit. What's within that toolkit? Is that toolkit going to assist in that writing piece, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, it's going to be as broad as students would want it to be. And so how to get a toolkit for everyone involved on this call today, my email address, you might want to write this down if you're interested in the toolkit. Please feel free to email me at ajacobs@america250.org. Again, ajacobs@america250.org. And I will go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Answers to these questions, though, specifically on students can answer it however they like. That's the beauty of it, is that this is open to what students want to share about how they feel about America. And I'm sharing most specifically as Tribal Partnerships Director with our Native Hawaiian, Alaska Native, Native American communities, our 574 federally recognized tribes, in addition to state recognized. So I really would like for us to make sure that we have a large Native footprint as a part of this initial, our pilot America's field trip effort. But in order for that to happen, we definitely need to have our native students apply.
So just to clarify that these students can write what they see as from their eyes what America is like, or is that because I think a lot of these kids may be looking at their only small community. They're not looking at this as a larger picture.
Yeah,
That's why
that's
I'm asking for maybe there's a criteria, there's a subject area that they could kind of focus in on.
you know I'm my thought is that it's however students want to interpret what America means to them. Um, us, I think, coming from our native communities, our native values, um, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I would work on amplifying our native values so that others can, and the American public can understand native values. That's perhaps a way to go. Um, but I think it is really up for how our students, what they feel like America means to them. There are no guardrails on this. I think it's meant to be as broad as our students would like for it to be as well. I'm looking for inspiration though. Inspiring, I believe, is something that certainly would be a shoe-in as if it's an inspirational submission.
Okay, last question. The length of that, could it be a paragraph? You know, a lot of these kids don't, the writing portion, sometimes they go right to the source and they have two or three sentences and that's it. Is there
Yeah.
is there a letter of like
Well,
200
that's where I
words
think
or half a page or
Yeah, we do have some. So we do mention, I believe it's up to 100 words for third to fifth graders. And let me go back to and take a look at that. Um,
would that be in the toolkit that you're talking about? The-
yes, and
Okay.
it'll be in the toolkit. You'll also find everything you'd find in the toolkit, you'll probably find online. And again, that'll be at america250.org. But what we can do is share the raw stuff that you can just cut and paste so it doesn't come from a website. And it's different copy and different graphics as well. So how do students submit their work? Thank you for the question. Students will submit their work online. They will also need either a parent, teacher, or someone over the age of 18 to submit the material, since we wouldn't want youth being exposed in that anyway like that. So submissions will be online, and you can find the criteria submissions process again also at america250.org. I see a question in here. Show the deadline page. Sure, let me pull it. I can go ahead and do that again, if you don't mind. You doing this here real quickly?
Yeah, there's a few questions here. One is that how do the students submit their work and send the information out to all Title VI programs? I guess the first question is that how do students submit their work? All this information could be found in the toolkit, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is we'll just cut right to the chase. I think if you get that tool, request that toolkit, that will give you a kickstart on everything. Plus that, you'll have communication with Andre too.
hmm And again, so if you could please feel free to email me. My email address is ajacobs@america250.org. Do we have any other questions here? Okay, can you see? Okay, nope. I think we've. Can you send all the information out to all Title VI programs? Okay. Yes, and I think we just answered it. Yeah, please email me. That would be great. Well, I'm honored for an opportunity to share with you all today about this effort. I'd love for us to be able to amplify Native stories as a part of this national effort in 2026. And the only way for that to happen is for us to get the Native community to submit applications for this and our future efforts moving forward. So I'd love to be able to stay in touch with you as a community when we do have future efforts coming up. And I really thank you all for an opportunity to share with you today. That's all I had.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andre. That was very informative. I think this is another opportunity for the Title VI to get their students involved, and you could probably edit a lot of the information for your students, but that's kind of up to you guys. But I think that toolkit is really important. So thank you, Andre.
Thank you. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
You bet. Thank you. All right, let's move on. I'm going to share, well, let's go through the agenda. I think the next agenda item was the OIE application deadlines. You guys are aware of all the deadlines to make sure that you guys stay on top of that. I think, especially when you submit your application, and just kind of expect an answer as to your funding. Oftentimes it's sometime during the summer or just before school's out. So just kind of keep, just keep your eye out for the deadlines and stuff. I got number 2 here is the tribal consultation. Now for those, let me share this here, what we use here. The tribal consultation it's set aside for those school districts, Title VI programs that receive more than $40,000 per year. Now, for those school districts that don't receive that through the Title VI, you have an option to do that. And I think coming down the road, I think OIE is probably going to request that all recipients of funding should go through that tribal consultation. But that's just kind of my thoughts as to which direction that OIE is going. But this is our consultation information here. And with those students or with those school districts that request that I set up that, I do have that set up with the Goshute tribe on April the 16th. Now, there are other school districts that are in the location of their tribes. Oftentimes they do that consultation with the local tribes in their area. Let me give you an example with Uinta and Duchesne. Oftentimes they have that consultation with the Ute tribe, and you go down south with San Juan, much closer to the Navajo tribe. They do their consultation there, and the Washington School District and Iron and Sevier, I believe they do theirs with the Paiute tribe, and all the other schools in this area. Usually we'll do our consultation with the Goshute tribe. And of course, you have Cache, Davis, and Ogden. Oftentimes they do their consultation with the Shoshone tribe up north. So, but this is the information here, and this is information that you sign in the tribal organization here. And here is the other piece here that as you showcase your programs, you mark the things that you think that you'll be able to present to the consultation people. And of course, at the end here, you'll have the tribal representation and the LEA, which is you, and your name and your date is to this. And if you could submit this to me after that's all said and done, this is basically for my records, and I think that will be good for your records also. Okay. Um, Let me
Thank
get
you
another
for
one.
being willing to be the go-between on that, Dr. Foster. I know it's kind of procedure now at this point, but it's one task that we're grateful that we all don't have to set up on our own.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we have good cooperation with the local tribes. Like, we were talking about the names. What names should they call me? We're on a first name basis with the tribe, so I'm pretty comfortable with that. So
Then do they
that's
use the same name that I use for you, or do they just call you Chuck? I mean,
you really don't want to know.
no. Okay. Well, all right. Yeah. Well, we're grateful that you set that up for us because
Uh,
if not, Sarai would be doing it, and she's a bit of a taskmaster. So I'm glad that you're handling that,
yeah.
I think I'd pass that on to you, Matt.
and I would pass that straight to Eileen, and that's how it would go in a circle.
Make sure when you pass it, go right, counterclockwise or clockwise, please. All right, then the next is for all the people who are gonna do their celebrations. I've got a few of them, and this is the memo. I think everybody basically has that memo in their hand now, and that's been signed and approved by supervisors and the superintendencies. And this is the justification for the meals that you're going to provide for your families. So, you might want to keep this very close. And I also sent this information to the business office, so they're aware of it when you submit your reimbursement. And this is the letter that they're going to go by. And I believe that the celebrations which I've received confirmation on, they're from April through the last week, halfway through May, you'll have those celebrations and stuff. So that's another good thing that we have. Um, I had another one here. Let me pull this. Let me pull this one up here a second. And I got the last item here. Let me pull it up, and I'll share that with you, which is the let's see here. Let me pull it up first. Be patient with me here. Here you go. Regulation. Down here to SB 30. And do you see the screen? Yeah, I think you do. This is the HB 30 Student Tribal Regalia Use Amendment. And again, this has been sent out, and you guys make sure that your principals know about the regalia usage. And if they do have questions, you'll show 'em this information, and it should be okay. I think last year this is our third year with this House bill. And last year we had a little bit of an issue because one of the school districts didn't read their memo. So it was uh, it was not a very good approach to our students. But I did meet with the superintendent as well as the principal a couple days later, and now they're aware that we do have this in place, and we're just one of a few states in the United States that have this in place. I think there's only a handful. And the other states, they're still with the old guard where, you don't use that. You do regalia for American Indians, but it's okay for other nationalities to use theirs. So that's not, I don't think that's right either. So those are the updates that I have, and I'll stop sharing. And do you guys have any updates out there before we move on to the Urban Indian Center? Okay, well, I guess there is not. And with this, let me go back to the number 5C, which is the justification for food. I did have 7 responses for justification. They send me their agenda previous. I have those, And hopefully if you're going to use the funding for your celebration, please submit your agenda item or your agenda to me so I can justify that. If that does not appear, then your district is going to have to pay for that celebration meal. Okay, I just want to make sure that that's clear. If there are no updates from the Title VI, is Penelope here, our a representative from the Urban Indian Center here today? Okay, I guess not. And Clayton, are you on also? I'd like to have you do an update on the language in the government class.
I haven't seen Clayton get on the meeting today.
Okay. And I guess it brings us to the last point. It was adjourn. You know, again, I'd like to thank all of you for your attendance, and I think we had a very, very good day in terms of information. I think Dustin does a very, very good job. He does a lot of research, and of course, you know, that's his area of study, is that the political actions in the American Indian community and the law of American Indians. And for Jacob, you know, to have this item for us, you know, this gives us an opportunity to work with our students, you know, ordering the kit, and you know, you go from there and get as much information as you can, and helping your students along. You know, I know that some students, especially when they're young, you know, they have a difficult time with their expression as far as writing. So you have you know, have an idea that, you know, then you can kind of help them along, but not, but please don't write it for them. Have the students write, and you can add to it as to what they really want to say or what they're saying on paper. Okay. Well, our next meeting is April the 19th. We're just around the corner, people, from graduation and all the celebrations. We got, you know, I figure there's anywhere between 9 to 10 weeks left of school. And this year, the school went quick. It's you blink your eyes and you're just about done. So just to prepare you guys, to make sure that you guys stay healthy and stay strong. And if you have any questions, please email me and we'll go from there. I have no other comments. Does anybody have comments before I sign off?
Dr. Foster, I wanted to ask if you were available to do a repeat of your presentation to my other school, but that's not a PLC matter. So can I call you after this is done, or?
Yeah, we'll just stay on. Let's stay on
Oh,
and
okay,
we'll talk.
cool.
Okay. Any other? Okay. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you April the 19th, or we'll see you when we see you. Hey, thanks.
Oh, hey, hey.
Oh, yeah.